usually when we do these education events, we do them and we talk about something specific to finance, whether it's the economy. And so we had an economics professor and we had a lot of different things. But I've always said, what do y'all want to learn about? What do you want to know about that? And so what we're going to do today is we're talking about travel and we're talking about real estate. Two questions that kept coming up. And so I am very excited. I wanted to introduce Laura Morillo. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. Okay. Laura is from DeLuca Luxury Travel Designers, and Carla Hoots, and she is from Fader Real Estate. And so they are both local to the area. They've got some great insights. And so I'm excited to dive into this today. Before we start, Laura, do you want to start us off? Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and maybe a favorite book that you read recently.
Tell me if you can. This sounds good. Awesome. So, okay, my name is Laura Morillo. I own DeLuca Luxury Travel Designers. We're right here at Winston, though we kind of move around all over, but we have clients all over the country. But I've been in the business for about 12 years, almost 13. And our specialty is really not everything we do is ultra luxury. A lot of what we do is luxury. But the main thing that I do is a lot of custom travel. People that want to go maybe, I don't know, to Ireland and Scotland and Italy all in one trip, or they want to do Machu Picchu and the Galapagos Islands, things like that are not necessarily already like pre-made or, that you can just go online and find. That's most of what I do, but we're a full service agency. So we do cruises, we do your typical, escorted tours, we do the national parks, Hawaii, whatever you want. But my real specialty is those custom itineraries. So I started in the business back when I was, 22, 23, kind of doing it all. And then as I got better and I progressed, I started getting more like niche, more specific, especially into Europe, like the Europe area is what I know best. Though I'm familiar with a little bit of everything. And then here, Emily works with me, work together. So she's here to also answer any questions or anything you guys may have. So yeah, I'm doing this for, over a decade, and I love every minute of it. It's not great all the time, but most of the time it's a great job. So yeah.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. All right. And Carla, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hello. Yes. Hello. My name is Carla Hoots. I'm with Fader Real Estate. We are a boutique firm within ERA Livermore. Claire Fader started the firm about 6 years ago. And I have been in the real estate industry for about 10 years. I actually started once my son went off to college. I do have an accounting background, so I went to Elon University, and I actually grew up in Bermuda Run, which is right over the river. And so anyway, I have been living in this area since I was 12 years old. My uncle was the head football coach at Wake Forest University in the late 70s, John Makovic, and we came down for a football game. We were from Ohio. The Makovics are from Ohio. And my parents were looking to relocate, wanted to get out of the cold. We lived in Canton, Ohio. And anyway, they fell in love with the area. And so we moved within 3 months and stayed. My uncle went on to the Dallas Cowboys and many other places after that. But anyway, we have loved living here. We love the area. My husband went to Wake Forest. He's never lived anywhere else. And I do live in Winston now, but as I said, grew up under me to run. And we have a wealth of knowledge. My husband also runs a construction company, Wilson Covington in Winston. So our firm specializes in the niche that we have, Fader Real Estate, is that we have the biggest online social media marketing of any firm. So Claire owns Best of Winston, which is a very large Instagram account. If anybody's familiar with that stuff. And so that kind of is our niche that we are able to market locally better than any firm in the Triad, really. We do work the Triad. We specialize in Winston. We do work a lot with Atrium, bringing doctors in to this area, nurses and researchers. But we have a lot of success with listing houses and helping people relocate. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I want to start off, Carla, by asking you on the home decision side. We have a lot of clients that will come in and they will be thinking about downsizing, right sizing, moving, kind of relocating. And there's a lot of different things that come into that. Have you noticed things over time? What's necessarily what kind of things maybe keep people in homes that don't complement their current lifestyle?
A lot of it, I would say, is an emotional attachment. Sometimes I know for even myself, my children are like, you can never sell our house.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's part of it. And I think sometimes one spouse might want to move, one spouse may not. If children, it depends. If children live away and grandchildren, sometimes people do want to keep their place. So they have people, when their family comes, they can come visit. So I just think there's a lot of reasons behind that. I think it's overwhelming to people.
So people might not necessarily know where to go or.
Well, and to think of packing up, things that they've lived there 30 years plus. That is where real estate agents can be very handy because we do help you and oversee that part and can be extremely beneficial.
Now, I had someone tell me a couple of years ago, they said you should move every 5 years because it keeps you from saving too much stuff. I don't know if anyone else should do that, but I will say this anecdotally. When my wife and I bought our first home, we lived there for 7 years. And a couple years ago, we were packing up to move and I found boxes that we had never unpacked from that first move. And so we obviously didn't have time to look at them. So we just moved them. And I went, why are we doing this? But so moving helps you kind of go through memories and things like that. Not that everyone necessarily needs to move, but talk to me about like a 55 community versus something like Arbor Acres type of a community.
Good question. So Del Webb is coming to Winston-Salem. I don't know if anybody saw that newspaper article or is familiar with that, but that will be a true 55 plus community. And it will be the first one. And I'm very happy that Winston-Salem got selected. I think that says a lot for our city. The article was very complimentary to our town. And that is more of a community where they have amenities, and that's why people like those kind of communities. They're also, it's a $300,000 price point start. And, when people do downsize, that it is going to be homes that are more conducive to what people are looking for, which are hard to find in the open market. Now, as far as like Arbor Acres and those types, that's a whole different animal. That's a whole different situation. A lot of times you have to buy in. Sometimes you don't get anything out when you do pass. So that is a whole different situation. Why somebody would go to what we call an assisted living type facility. Even though they do have independent homes, a lot of them do. It is still it's not just buying real estate,
right?
And having an asset necessarily that you can leave on your portfolio. So yeah. A different situation. But yeah, they're popular here. I've helped many people go to Arbor Acres, Homestead Hills, and sold their home for them and coordinate the people. So, I mean, it can be a good move. But the 55 plus community, there are some around Lake Norman. That's a popular area that has a lot of 55 plus. Charlotte, the bigger cities in North Carolina have it. But I'm very excited about Del Webb coming to Winston.
Have you noticed any kind of surprises with folks that have moved to a 55 plus community and then maybe are moving away because they said, well, I wasn't expecting X or Y?
So the only thing I have heard, and this is people in Florida that I've talked to, is that some of the amenities that you were sold on are not as easily accessible as they thought they would be. So it could get to, I think, like, especially in Florida, I think places like that, I think it is the population is a lot greater in these communities. I think the one here that's being built will be fine. I noticed I didn't see a golf course. A lot of them do have a golf course. Some are on lakes, I think that's why I think the Lake Norman is popular. But that's the only thing that I've heard is that, some of they don't feel the amenities are as available as they thought they would be.
Yeah. That's good insight. Now, Laura, on your side, this is more about how people want to spend their time or what they want to do. Have you noticed there's any kind of particular trips that have become more popular or that you would recommend people be thinking about?
Well, the two-part question. Yes, I noticed that lately, it's a lot of whatever's online, whatever people are seeing online. So like right now it's Japan. Everybody's going to Japan. That's the trend. A few years ago, it was all about Greece and then Italy and the Amalfi Coast. And like, it goes in phases. But there's always like your typical people that are, they want to go see those big name ticket items like the Colosseum, or maybe it's their first time going to Europe and they want to hit London, Rome, and like Paris or something. There's still most of that is still out there. And then you have your honeymooners that want to go somewhere, romantic, and you have a little bit of everything. But yeah, as far as like the trend right now, the thing is Japan. Everybody wants to go to Japan. They want to do all the cafes, all the pet cafes, the otter cafe, the little pig cafe, all of those. And then as far as what I would recommend, I have my favorites. I have my personal favorites, but I tend to recommend things after I talk to a client a little bit, like just at least a little bit. That's why we do offer like a free travel inspiration consultation, because sometimes people, they don't really know where they want to go. Like they know what they want to feel. They know they maybe want to go somewhere warm, or they want to go somewhere that has a lot of history, or they want to see castles, or they want to go because of a show that they like somewhere, or maybe they like wine and they just want to go have some great wine, but they don't really know where to go. And then once I get to talking, I can kind of scratch the surface and then get a little deeper and be like, okay, I think you would love this destination.
Yeah.
We do try our best to go as many places as we can. So a lot of places I have been to, I haven't been everywhere. But if I get a feel just by talking to somebody and to somewhere I've been, I get very much into, oh, you got to go to Ireland and eat at this castle and have the afternoon tea and do all these things, So yeah.
So I have some clients that'll tell me about trips, right? And something I've heard probably 4 times now was people come back from vacation and they go, I need to recover from my, it's you're like, I'm back. And you're like, now I need a week off after my 2 weeks off. So would you argue there's maybe a difference between travel and vacation? And how do you explain that to people?
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, since most of what I do is custom, and I'll have people reach out to me and be like, I want to book this Trafalgar tour or this Tau tour. And then by the end of the call, I convince them to do something custom, because those tours, they're great. Nothing against them. And some people are very anxious travelers, so they like the structure of a escorted tour. But I'm always like, if you can afford it and you want to be able to kind of go at your own pace, it's always better to go exactly where you want to go, see what you want to see, and I can sprinkle some suggestions in there of my own, right? So I always tell people, you don't want to come home and need a vacation from your vacation. I use that phrase all the time. So what I do is I try to keep it like 1 day on, 1 day off as far as like pre-booked activities.
Okay.
Because sometimes I think people feel, oh, I got to have something to do every day because I'm going to wake up and what am I going to do? I'm in a place that I don't know. But that is part of... Is that just like, that's me. But I feel like, and that's fine. Everybody's a different traveler, but I feel like that's exactly what exhausts you sometimes. Because even if you're just going to a museum, the fact that you're like, okay, I got to get up at 8 because I have to eat breakfast by 9 so I can be here by 10 so I can have, that's exhausting. That gets very, doesn't it? And then you're walking everywhere. And so, yeah, I always recommend leaving some days where either there's nothing or maybe like at the most a 4-hour, excursion or something like that. But obviously that can only be done if we do something custom. If you're going with the escorted ones, some of them are slim, so you can find some that have less activity. But yeah, the gist of it is, if you can do a custom itinerary, I would recommend that. I feel like you're going to get more out of it.
That kind of tees up a question that I had, and I wanted to hear from both of you on this. And it's really kind of around, from both perspectives, kind of some things that people may not be thinking about when they're dreaming big. Sometimes you think about, okay, you said Japan, so I'll pick on Japan. I know that if I floated that out to Kristen, she would look at me and she'd go, how long is the flight? That's the most important question she's going to ask. Not, do they have otter cafes? Although that sounds amazing. Did not know they had that. That's really cool. But are there things that when you're dreaming big or thinking big, you're like, okay, that's great, we can do it, but maybe be aware of this. And then I'll let you kind of think about it, because I'm going to ask the same question about real estate too.
Yeah, a few things. The first thing is, I feel like sometimes people don't quite, and it's okay if you're not aware, like familiar with it, they don't quite grasp the distance between some places. And they're like, I want to go to Europe for 10 days and I want to go to Paris and London and Rome and did it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, because you're going to be traveling. You're not going to see anything. All you're going to do is hop from one place to the other. Also, another thing I see a lot is a lot of people think that Europe, you can get anywhere via train. Anywhere you can get to the end of the world. And it's not necessarily true. There's a lot of parts of Europe that are not easy accessible with train. And then the other thing is too, I see people tend to underestimate, especially lately with the way that, oil went up and everything, what like flights cost or what they think. I'll have people be like, oh, I want to stay here for $200 a night and I want to have a view. And it's like, you can't find a place in Winston for $200 a night, especially nothing with a view. So things like that. And you just have to gently kind of like reset their expectations,
Okay.
educate them, if you will.
What about on the real estate side? Do you find people have these big dreams and then they realize maybe this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be?
I think on the real estate side, what I run into sometimes is a lot of people think, even empty nesters, that they want to build. And a lot of people do not have realistic expectations with what that would cost. Building materials, since COVID, everything has just skyrocketed. And so, I mean, it's a very difficult endeavor to take on unless you go into a neighborhood like a Brookberry Farm or somewhere where they're building, or a True Homes or whatever. That is doable and easier and more, the costs are very laid out there in black and white for you. But to just go out and try to find a piece of property and build a house, a lot of people, well, I don't want much, yeah, well, what, 2,000 square feet? Is that, yeah, well, at least 2,000 square feet. Okay, well, that's going to be, $300 to $350 a square foot. And that sometimes doesn't even include the land. And a lot of it is finishes and things and that. But I mean, 300 is about as bare as you're going to get. And so I think it's eye opening for people, and, the wind comes out of their sails a little bit when they realize what all the price may be to do that. So that's my experience with sometimes expectations not being realistic.
Yeah. What about things like multiple properties, thinking about county taxes versus city taxes, just that side of things where you kind of have an idea in your head, but don't necessarily think about all the other ramifications?
Yeah, that can come in. I mean, we have a pretty good tax rate in the Triad, no matter where you live. But I mean, Davidson County is a very popular area to live because the property tax rate is lower. So I have run into that where people only want to live in a certain area based on property taxes. And that is fine. We can do that. One thing that does come into another expectation sometimes is, depending where you go, it's going to be septic and well as opposed to public water and sewer. So
that might be a good thing with Winston right now.
So that is something to take into consideration. And sometimes people don't realize that if you're going to live in a certain area it may be septic, it may be public, and sometimes you'll get septic with public water. But, and to me, that's not a problem. But for some people, I don't want to be I've never been on anything but public water and sewer. I don't want to be, so that is sometimes a hurdle that needs to be addressed. So that is something that can come up. But yeah, based on property taxes and other things, they may want to look in specific areas, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
So let's say somebody's maybe a couple years from retirement and they're thinking about possibly relocating to either be closer to grandkids or to kind of just make a change. Is there anything that you would say, what kind of conversations should they be having either with their spouse or with professionals like you? What kind of things would you say they should be thinking about or talking about?
So I have met people even here that have moved here to be closer to grandkids and family. And sometimes it doesn't quite work out, or it isn't what they thought it was going to be, whatever that may be. So I would just recommend, I'm all for it. And I think people should do what they want to do. And if they want to be more near their grandkids, but I just think that they need to, one thing I would say is just to make sure that you talk to the parents of the grandkids or whatever, and that it may look like what they think it's going to look like as far as how much they're going to be able to be around them and partake in activities and things like that. That would be that's the only thing I've run into. I've ran into people living here that, well, I moved here for my grandkids and it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to, as far as like their daily life.
Yeah. And I've heard the saying that disappointment is oftentimes unmet expectations. And I think that's really true, because I've actually seen this go both ways, where I've had some people tell me, we wanted to be closer to our grandkids. We don't get to see them as much as we thought we would. And I've had other people that say, we came to be closer to the grandkids. I did not realize that meant I was going to be 24/7 babysitting.
Yeah.
And we can't plan trips because it's around their school schedule and things. And they're like, and so it can kind of go both ways. It's not always a negative, but you do have to think through these things. So what about on like the travel side? Do you have a lot of people plan big family vacations and things like that? And what are things to consider there?
So I have several people that do several clients. I have some that I've been doing a yearly family vacation, multi-generational. I'm talking like 40 people once a year, like for New Year's. They do it. They've been doing it for 7, 8, 10 years. I don't know. I've lost count how long they've been doing it. I have that. I have other people that will reach out and say, hey, I've seen this lately. People have gone through cancer treatment and they're like, I overcame this. I want to do this trip with my family as a celebration, if you will, of, overcoming something so, challenging. And they do like a lifetime trip to Italy and they go, maybe their family used to be from Italy and they go back to, their roots, kind of like where their family was from. I have a lot of that. And then I also have more like repetitive things, people that have more sort of like a common interest. Like I mentioned earlier, wine travel or people, maybe people that are more into culinary experiences. So they just want to go and literally just cook their way through whatever country. Like they don't want to go to a museum. They don't care about any of that. They just want to go cook and eat. So it's great. I mean, every time I plan those, I'm like, oh man, I got to do something like this. This looks awesome. Like no going to a church and none of that, which nothing against that. I enjoy that too, but there's something to it. So yeah, I have people that do it repetitively, like they do it as a once a year kind of thing. And then I have other clients that, do it every once in a while. Maybe I have other clients that have done it once, haven't done it again. I mean, it's a financial commitment to do a big trip like that. And most of them range between like 6 to 12 people. The 40 people is not the majority, but I do quite a little bit of that. And normally I would say the best thing about that is just do it as far in advance as you can. That's the best thing because that's how you get the best price. You get first choice on hotel availability. I mean, we have time to tweak it. And, when there's a lot of people involved, it could be a bit harder to get everybody on board, the schedules and all that. But yeah, definitely something that's popular. People like to do. And I think it's a great thing. You make great memories. I had a client do the craziest one I've done. He wanted to take his family to the Greek Isles, but they didn't want to do a cruise. So he booked 2 yachts with chefs on them, took his entire 22 of them. Took his whole family over to Greece and they just cruised the Greek Isles on these 2 yachts.
They just rowboat between them or?
They would eat sometimes on one, they would eat on the other. And then they spent some time in Athens on the way home and they thought they had a great time. Like every time I still do trips for them. I haven't done a big one since, but I don't know the reason why they planned that trip. I don't know if there was some major life event. I was not made aware of it, but I just think that was the coolest. I'm waiting for my dad to do something like that, But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know there's oftentimes a difference between, going to a resort, which has a lot of amenities versus like booking a house, which has maybe more freedom, maybe not. Have you found that there's certain areas where people, it's a nice central location where then you can take some of these day trips and go out versus kind of feeling isolated? So I know I'm a runner, and which everybody knows because I won't shut up about it. But when we travel, I love to run. And there's been times where we've gone somewhere and I feel like I can run up and down this one street because I don't want to die. And I run up and down it 47 times. And then it's like, well, that was terrible. And other times you can go and you can explore. So are there places where you would say both from the resort might be safe, but do not leave it, like that kind of thing. Can you speak to that? And I know I'm asking 7 questions, but then also maybe like an area that has good day trips and things to think about when you look at this?
It's all of that. There's all of that. It really comes down to what the client is looking for. There's parts of the Caribbean where I would tell a client it's perfectly safe to go here. Mexico's a great example. It's perfectly safe to go to Mexico. Just don't go do like a road trip. I mean, I wouldn't go like run out unless you're like in Playa del Carmen or something like somewhere, that's very populated. So when the client comes to me, if they tell me those are the kinds of things that come up in conversation, as you can tell, I can talk and I will get something out of you. I will find out like what you just said about the running, like that will come up in conversation. And then I'm like, okay, well for him, I got to maybe pick a different place, and it also comes down to budget because, I mean, the more ideal the location, the more expensive it's going to be. I mean, these people that whether you're doing a vacation rental or a resort, which I tend to lean towards either doing a resort or a hotel. I try to stay away from vacation rentals as much as I can because they're very, it's almost like, it's like a Russian roulette where you can get a really good one and a great host, or you can get a really bad one that doesn't pick up the phone, doesn't send you entry codes, and you're out there. You can't get into the house, and then they're calling me, and then I don't have it. What do I do? Like, all I can do is call the host, the same thing that the client can do. I have nothing to fall back on. Like, it makes me very nervous when somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, I want an Airbnb. I completely stopped booking Airbnbs altogether just for security reasons. because there were some incidents where they put cameras in some of the houses and people didn't know. And then you also lose a lot of the amenities that come with the hotel. And a lot of the time, really, like it's the same price. And then you're having to like do your own dishes. Like who wants to do dishes? We complain about this all the time because we've traveled together many times. And we'll be like, who wants to do dishes at the end of their vacation? Like you just want to be able to leave. There's no front desk. There's nobody local that you can ask anything. You're just kind of at the whim of whoever owns this house. And that can go really well or really, really bad. I've seen both. So to answer your question, back to the original 7 questions, it just depends on the client and what they're wanting, their budget. But I do try to steer them into something that I think would be a better fit for them. That doesn't mean I'm always right. But if it's especially somewhere I've been to, then I'm more firm about like, listen, you don't want to stay there. Like you're not going to like, like be more clear. That's why I try to go as many places as I can.
Yeah.
Because it just gives me a much better perspective and I can advise people much better.
Yeah.
Than somewhere I have been.
So speaking of staying somewhere and going, I don't necessarily want to stay there. Once you get there in person, I know it seems like a lot of people's hobbies now is to go on Zillow and just kind of look at homes. Are there certain areas that you would maybe say, okay, this is an up and coming area, which would be a more attractive place to purchase a home or to move towards? And is there areas that you say, you know what, there's a data center that's being built a half a mile away, or there's all this traffic coming, or have you seen that kind of in Forsyth, Davidson? Is there anywhere where you'd say this is a great spot to look at, but the traffic here is going to make you miserable? Anything like that?
Absolutely. And and that is a realtor's job, is to, if somebody is looking at something, to look, within a few miles of that property and see what is going on in the future. None of us have a crystal ball, but certainly if anything has been made public, the client needs to know before they would ever purchase something. So, but a perfect example is Brookberry Farm. I mentioned that earlier. That, people love that and it's a beautiful neighborhood, but that is one of the first things I bring up is it's also the most congested at certain times and probably anywhere that's in Salem.
Yep.
It's bottlenecked. You have the elementary school, you have the middle school, you have people going out to Forsyth Country Day. So, it's a tough area to me. I'm spoiled. I live, where I don't have any bottlenecked. I do live near the Parkway, and there are certain times where it gets a little slow, but not like that. So, yeah.
The reason I ask is because I was thinking about driving into Tanglewood. Has anybody gone to the Festival of Lights?
Yeah.
Has everyone seen how long the line is for the Festival of Lights? I thought about that one day. This was probably 2 years ago. My wife and I were sitting in traffic, and I was like, I would hate to live on this road for about a month and a half out of the year. And it's not year round. It's not all the time, but those kinds of things come up. And so,
a realtor would need to say that for sure.
Yeah.
Or but here we do have, you can go up to 801 and get out. so I don't, there are solutions, but that is a realtor's job to point that out. Anything that may come up, any news that may be coming. Yeah, for sure. You would want to know. In fact, sometimes, we even have you sign off that you've been made aware of this and you still want to purchase.
So let me ask you something, and this is kind of off the cuff, but I'm curious. I've seen this go both ways, and this really isn't for y'all. This is just a question for me. If you get something out of it, great. But since I got you, I'm going to ask. I have purchased homes and had a home inspection done, and they go, this thing is in great shape. There's very few minor things. And I'm like, that's amazing. And having now owned the home, you go, this was not a very good home inspection. But I've also had home inspections where I got 47 pages and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is the most ticky-tacky nonsense. And so when you're talking to a home inspector, what would you say? What are the key things you're like, okay, these are what I really need to focus on. This is obviously we can fix a loose knob on a cabinet, but this is more of a structural issue with a cabinet. It's like, is there anything you would say to people when they're looking at like the home inspection that might deter them from buying versus just being aware of it? Okay. I know that's a loaded question. I know I did, but that's whatever. Does anybody else want to know? Thank you.
Okay. So I tell everybody all the time, first of all, buying and this is a whole probably another seminar, but buying a home in North Carolina is a little different. We have something here called due diligence, and we have a due diligence fee that is non-refundable. So it's scary for people buying a home because they're like, what do you mean it's non-refundable? It's non-refundable. So, even before I have somebody write an offer, I'm looking at the house with a fine tooth comb, and if there's anything that, you think could be a problem, older homes primarily, yeah, I'm going to point it out. Sometimes I'll even say, no, I wouldn't let you buy this house. There's just no way. So, but yes, for a home inspector, I think what you need to keep in mind, and tell people this all the time, a home inspector is like going to your yearly checkup doctor. They're just a general practitioner. That's all they are. And they're going to write up these reports and stuff. And it always says it's the same thing as getting your checkup, go see a specialist. So they always say that you need to have, go see and have an electrician evaluate, have a plumber evaluate, have a structural engineer evaluate, whatever. They're just giving you a blanket. And then it's between you and your realtor to determine, do we need to do more? Another specialized inspection. All the inspections do fall on the buyer.
Right.
So, a perfect example of one would be a camera scope to check the sewer lines out to the street, especially with an older home. That's something that I would highly recommend. Of course, you're paying for the inspection, so I can only recommend things. Sometimes buyers will say, oh, I'm not too worried about that. I'll let that go. So, but yeah, it's my job to sit down with somebody, go through the home inspection report. And of course, and a lot of men usually, it's just the way it is, have a lot of opinions on a lot. Usually the women are like, they're more interested in what the house looks like. But yeah, and sit and determine, what do we want to investigate further? What repairs are we going to ask for, et cetera.
What kind of repairs would you say are reasonable versus any seller would go, no, I'm not doing that?
Well, radon mitigation, we do have radon here.
Okay.
So that is a test I highly recommend, and everybody do, even if it's on a slab, because it can happen. So that is something that sellers usually do not argue about. It is a material fact. So we have something here in North Carolina called material fact, which is not defined. It's kind of like a security. It's not defined. So it is very difficult to say what that is. And that's why you have that. But radon is something that, everybody can agree is a material fact. And 99 out of 100 sellers are going to, cooperate and give money for a radon mitigation system to be installed. But then after that, but structural for sure. If anything structural is wrong with the house or comes up, that is something that, yes, we would have to have a structural engineer look at it. We have to get quotes. And yeah, that as well can be a material fact. But as far as like anything like a sink is leaking or, the bathtub, or today it's so popular to have these fancy showers and tile around them. And yeah, if the grout is cracked or anything, that's something that's going to come up. There's, the regrouting needs to be done in the shower, things like that. And sellers aren't necessarily always going to do repairs like that.
So when it comes to due diligence, at one point in time, it felt like 500 was a reasonable due diligence amount. And then you'd hear people offering 10,000 as a due diligence. Where does it stand now? If you were trying to make a competitive offer, where do you feel like the due diligence number kind of falls and makes sense? And let's just peg it to a house that's $600,000. Just to pick a number.
So location does matter.
Okay.
So because I sell a lot in Advanced North Carolina and, other areas. And so location matters. And so I will say that the further out you go, the lower expectations are for a due diligence fee. So on a $600,000 house, you may get away with even, $2,500 for due diligence. I always start low. I'm like, let's see if we get away with it. But then in Winston, like I have a house I just listed in Old Sherwood Forest, if y'all know that neighborhood on Staffordshire, and very popular street in Old Sherwood. And it was listed at $599,900. And I had 17 showings in 12 hours. I had 7 offers within 16 hours. And the offer we took, I'm not going to tell you how much, but it was over because we haven't closed. I can't say, but I will tell you the due diligence fee was $20,000 plus.
Really? Do you find that people offer higher due diligence when they either, one, really want the house, or two, if it's a newer home? Because you mentioned more things tend to come up with older homes, or does that not seem to affect it?
Yeah, the age of the home doesn't really matter. It's just how much they want the house.
Okay.
It just shows to a seller, first of all, for them to back out of that, I would say, I don't want anybody to lose a dime. Period. I don't care if it's $500, which is what it used to be. But yeah, I would want you to be really sure you want the house, because if you were to terminate for some reason, you are going to lose that. So yeah, it's just that they want their offer to be stronger.
Awesome. So let me ask on the travel side. Do you have any kind of tips and tricks when it comes to traveling, either from a security standpoint or just kind of general things people should keep in mind, like cash versus cards, debit cards versus credit cards, and anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. There is always credit card, I will say, when you can. But yeah, there's a lot. It depends on the location where the client is wanting to go. Sometimes clients want to go somewhere that's not necessarily the most safe, but there's a way to do it safer. So I try my best to navigate that. Like, for example, I'll have somebody say, I had this client that he's been everywhere and he wanted to go to Egypt, and he was adamant that he was going to do it on his own. And I was like, listen, I'm the queen of booking a custom itinerary anywhere you want. But if you want to go to Egypt, we're doing a escorted tour or we're doing a cruise, or I'm not booking it. Like, you can do it yourself, things like that. And sometimes people are just not aware. They think they can just go and just kind of wing it. I had somebody recently he only did the Portugal leg of the trip with me, and he had already done something else with his wife that they had planned. They went to Morocco. Well, they ended up getting like extorted from like some cops pulled them over. They were driving to Morocco. I'm like, if you would have asked me, I would have told you not to do that, So yeah, there's a lot of different things. As far as like the things like credit card or this, or buying a SIM card or paying for the daily wireless, whatever, all of that comes down to really budget. Whether, you have the money to pay the extra, the more convenient thing, or you want to save the money. But yeah, there's lots of different, I always say, I was telling her before we're sitting here chatting, that I feel like travel is one of the few things that people will spend, I don't know, $20,000 on, $15,000 without talking to a professional ever. And there's a lot of resources. I would love to have everybody's business, obviously, but you can literally go online and find, local agencies. If you're not sure you're doing something by yourself, like, just call and ask. Like, a lot of us will give you we'll say, hey, you may want to do this or that. Like, we'll give you advice. It's not that you have to pay just to talk to a travel professional. But especially when you're going to some of those off the beaten path destinations and you're not an experienced traveler, even if you are an experienced traveler, just ask, get some advice, do some research, because you could put yourself in some really sticky situations. So yeah.
I will say, when it comes to driving yourself, one time my wife was the queen of getting a really cheap trip, really good at it. And somehow she got this crazy deal, and it included a rental car. And we were in Italy and we're driving along, and all of a sudden we come up to a toll and we can't back out because there's cars behind us. I can't figure out how the toll works because it's in Italian and all the buttons didn't make sense. Someone's yelling at us and I'm trying to understand what he's saying. And he kept saying something and I was like, okay, it's close enough to Spanish. He's trying to say, where are we going? No, he was asking where we came from, because where you came from between the tolls determined how much you were supposed to pay. And it was a whole thing. And Kristen eventually just started laughing at me, and I'm getting progressively more confused as this Italian man is yelling at us. He ends up coming out of the booth and coming over, and it was a whole thing. And I say that to say, if you're going to travel and drive in another country, that's great, but be ready for some fun stories, because there are some interesting things that can happen. And I know a buddy of mine, he was also driving through a city center and did not realize that certain times of the day, you cannot drive through the city center. Other times you can. So he got a ticket for $40 that was mailed to him 6 months later. By the time he went to pay it, there was late fees that accrued, and then the system wasn't working, and he ended up having to hire an attorney in Italy to go to pay his traffic ticket. And when it was all said and done, he spent over $500 just because he took the wrong road through the town, and he couldn't pay his $40 fee. Anyway, so there's reasons where it helps to talk to a professional. And in hindsight, I said, would it have been cheaper to get a cab? And he was like, I don't want to talk about that. But sometimes save a dollar, penny wise, pound foolish is the saying, I think. This might be a silly question, but is there a particular type of luggage that you recommend?
Depends on your budget. No, I mean, not really. I actually have like a few things that I like, kind of like my go-tos, but there's what's that brand from Amazon that's really good that we've had for years? Cool Life. Yeah, Cool Life on Amazon. Affordable, man. That thing has been with us everywhere. Still survives. And then you have your higher end stuff. But no, not really. I don't really. I mean, other than just make sure you have your it just also depends on where you're going.
Yeah.
And what time of the year. Are you going somewhere tropical, somewhere, or like this, at the end of the year, we're going to Finland, Rovaniemi. It's in the Arctic Circle. And now I don't know what the heck I'm going to bring, because North Carolina winter and Finland winter. So I'm already looking at renting things over there, because I'm not going to buy all these things to go there. We're going to be there for 4 days. So
You definitely need a snowsuit.
Yeah, like all the, and a lot of places it's like that too. Like I do a lot of ski trips for clients. They do the French Alps, whatever, the Dolomites, whatever you want to do. We have suppliers that will rent you all of the equipment, so you don't have to like bring it with you, unless you're like an avid skier and you have like your skis or something. So there's ways around keeping you from having to like purchase all this expensive equipment and luggage and things like that as well, because a lot of it can be rented on site.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful. I will say, I will say it does help to maybe look at your luggage before you start packing the week of. Again, this is from personal experience. But my wife and I were going on a trip not that long ago, and I pulled out my bag and I went to unzip it, and the zipper completely busted. And I was like, okay, well, this bag is done, because then as I looked at it closer, everything else was falling apart. And I was like, all right, so I'll use a different bag. And I went to use that bag, and then that bag was also in the process of breaking. And I was like, all right, I guess instead of packing, I'm going to go buy a bag. So I did ask, because I wanted to know. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to know.
That one stays with me because it was so affordable. I think I paid like $200 for a whole set, and I've had it for at least 6 or 7 years. And we travel maybe 3-4 times a year. And it's a family. Like it's my husband, our son, and me, and we travel all, and they throw them. Oh, I don't know. I'm using my mic. I'm sorry. They throw them at the airport. They do all, how they are and they're still standing. And so Cool Life from Amazon. Highly recommend.
Cool Life luggage from Amazon. Yes, sir.
Regarding luggage, a hard surface or
I prefer a hard surface. I just feel like I know the softer ones you can fit more things in them because you can stretch it out. But I feel like things, at least this one I'm talking about is a hard surface. I feel like it just keeps everything a little bit, it protects it a little more. So that's just my preference. But I mean, I think, and also they hold up. I feel like they hold up a little more. I don't know why. But these two, I don't know what's going to have to be done to that set for it to die, because it refuses to die. It's just there.
It's what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you put together a list, but I was going to ask, as far as like talking to a builder, because earlier you'd mentioned some people are interested in building maybe a retirement home or kind of their dream home. And you put together a list of questions with a builder that I thought was really helpful. And so we're going to have that resource. And I don't know if we could get the name of the luggage and some of those things for you all as well. But I wanted to open it up to questions. And I appreciate you kind of opening up and asking. Does anyone have questions for either one of these fine ladies? Yes.
What the specific artistry like Carla Hoots? Do you know how much money it normally takes to get in, what the wait is?
Yeah. So for those that couldn't hear, she said, so for something like Arbor Acres, do you know what the waiting list is, how much it costs to get in, those types of things?
Yeah. So first of all, they do vary. Arbor Acres is probably the hardest one to get into. And it is just based on it. And it is the type of thing you can get on a list. And when you are called, you have so long to say yay or nay. And then they are going to pass you up. So it depends. As far as cost, I would say, depending on what you want. But I know for apartments at Arbor Acres and then an apartment at Homestead Hills, I just helped 2 ladies. I would say it was in the $500,000 range. And that was for an apartment. And then the kicker is, and of course, Bermuda Run also has, their system over there. The kicker with all of these are the monthly fees on top. And that's where it's a huge decision, because you are on the line. Like Bermuda Run sells they have little houses, and I've sold them, that are really inexpensive for the neighborhood, like 150, 175, 200, and they're nice homes. But the problem is you are on the line for minimum, usually $5,000 a month. And, and the thing is, we have a swimming pool. We have, they have a cleaning lady. I mean, Homestead Hills, she has a cleaning lady. She has, it is amazing what all you get. But what I have found, especially here at the Bermuda Run one, and I don't know why, Bermuda Village, is the people aren't using it. And, they're just not getting, so it's not worth it to them to stay because they're not using the amenity and they're on the line to pay that monthly fee. So that would be the thing to keep in mind and decide if you were to make a decision with that. And I would investigate all of them because they're all very nice. I mean, honestly, if that is something you're interested in, they're all very nice and they all are, and they're similar. But I would investigate each one and then you can get on waiting lists. And it doesn't hurt to get on a waiting list because, like I said, you can always pass it up.
Is it? I got a question. Real estate. What's the difference? Pros and cons of barn dominion? Barn dominion.
Pros and cons of a barn dominium.
Condominium. So my brother has one in Summerfield, North Carolina.
For those that don't know, can you explain what a barn dominium is?
Yeah. So a barn dominium is a barn with a living quarters, basically. And I have not sold a barn dominium, and they're not as popular around here, but they are getting more popular, I will say. And like I said, my brother's just built one. So they're very cool. I love them. But I mean, the horses live there, the humans live there. It's all in one. And I mean, we have Christmas dinner at my brother's last year, and horses were on both sides of us. He set the table going right down the middle of it. It was absolutely beautiful. But anyway, so the cons would be appraising, resale. I mean, obviously that is going, I don't even know how an appraisal, appraising would be possibly kind of tricky. Loans, can you get it? I know my brother, he paid cash and built his, so I would have to investigate, what lenders are out there that would loan on a barn dominium that could help resell if a lot of lenders won't. I know condominiums right now, condominiums have always been hard with lenders. There's a list that they look at to determine whether they're going to lend or not. And I know the laws just got stricter with condominiums. So barn dominium, condominium, you're in that minium, so it can vary. Now, if you have a cash buyer, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I love them. I think they're really cool. Is it a safe from an investment standpoint? I would be a little shy.
Yes, ma'am.
So is the name
Web, and it is going in the north. So it's off of Bethania Road. They're saying Winston-Salem, but it's really Old Town, I would think.
wow. We just got that from we went to the presentation made me think of you when you customize, you have your client come back and say, okay, I have a when you're in Copenhagen, like people who live quite, hey, if you're going to go, the best view in the city is the Clover Palace. It's free. Don't go at 5 in the morning. Open till 9, you let that burn 10. Go at 8:30 and we'll walk right in. Go 10 o'clock in the morning the way you're down the house. But don't turn the kitchen. You get pissed for me. You get one pork by buckle. But the ten days like what when they give you this like there was a time to dinner or got the palace, you gotta leave at 9 o'clock in the morning and you're first one there. You have the whole palace and you see this way more people going up that hill. And they had a dog over there. It's like little pit. I usually knew something that we got to find out on our own. That we said, hey, go ahead and take it.
Yeah, so really good question. I feel like that's where we bring most of our value is in doing those little things. Because obviously anybody can go and like type your name into a booking. Like that's the easiest travel process. But so what we do is we help people with you reach out, we do the planning process, we pick the places, we work on the budget, we get the final itinerary exactly how you want it. And then you do your deposit, we talk about insurance. So just kind of give you an idea, right at the very end, after you make your final payment and 2 to 3 weeks prior to departure, we will upload, we have an app where you can keep all your day-to-day, your documents. One of the things we do is we upload a destination guide to wherever you're going. So let's say you're going to Rome, Paris, and Madrid. I'm just picking places everybody knows. And so we'll do a destination guide, like a generic Europe destination guide, like, hey, you need this adapter. These are the tipping guides, things like that. And then we do a per city destination guide. And that's where I add those things. Now, that's where we go in places really comes in, really matters. And then also clients giving me feedback, because some clients, I send 2 emails, 3 emails, asking them like, hey, do you want to tell me how this went? And you don't hear from them at all. Unless they're mad, then you'll hear. So I have thankfully, I have very, very good clients that not only do they do it because they want me to, be better, but also they want to help other people. And so they'll send and say, hey, I feel like you should tell people this little thing or this one little tidbit or this little restaurant or this bakery, or you can go shop for ceramics in this little store and, they'll do the shipping, little things like that. And then throughout the year, since I've been doing it for so long, I just kind of add them to whatever city. And then I already have them pre-made. So all I do is I just upload it to whatever city. And then I include in there restaurant recommendations, shopping recommendations, little things like that. Then on the other side of your question is the other thing we do is we work a lot with a lot of the same operators when we can. Not always we can do it because we don't know people everywhere. But I have if you're going to Paris, I have the person for Paris, and that person will take care of you from the time you get there till the time you get back. She'll, pick you up at the hotel. I have really good resources. And even if I'm not using them, I can text them and say, hey, I have a client. They're not doing a tour, but what do you recommend for this situation or this celebration? So we have a lot of those contacts with these operators on site. That is really, really helpful. Like you're talking towards by local. The local guides are the best resource you could ever get for us and for the client as well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to research the history of a property? Like for a longer duration? It might have multiple owners over the past, the additions, the historical maintenance, things like that.
Good question. So we do have in MLS, which is what realtors use. That's our website. We do have history. So I can go back usually, within, I would say 40 years, we can get a history on a property. And then as far as the permitting system in Winston-Salem, now it's 15 years. So that is one thing we look up, key a property and see what permits have been pulled in the last 15 years. And that gives you a good indication of some of the history. And then beyond that, it is hard. A lot of times I will look, and especially in Winston-Salem, I know so many people. Sometimes I'll know a past owner, and I have called them. Hey, do you remember this basement? Who did that? And this addition, did you do the addition? Things like that. But yeah. So you can get about 40 years and then permitting about 15.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of packing tips that you would recommend in terms of what type of clothing or how much you should take, or whether or not the type of items where you put your stuff in and just squeeze it down or whatnot, then all make
Yeah, I do. And I always tell myself I'm going to do a list and do Amazon affiliate links because I recommend so many things. I should be getting commission for them. But I never do. So yes, I do. And it all comes down to where you're going, really. If I knew where you were going, then I can get more into specifics. So, hey, if you want to go here, you may want to, now that I'm going through this Finland thing, now I have 3 suppliers that I know are have good reviews. I've done the research to rent the suits and all that. So yeah, it comes down to really where you're going and kind of why you're going. Cause somebody can go, and go do a very, I have people that will do a very high end trip and they're doing Michelin restaurants every night. And they're doing, they're going to the opera house and that kind of thing. And their packing recommendations are going to be different than somebody that's just wanting to, learn about the history around the city, right? That's something that we touch on normally towards the end, right? When we talk about documents and things like that. And then I have people that don't even ask. They're just kind of they know, and they're not going to be told what to do. So they kind of don't even ask for recommendations. But so yes, but it just really depends where you're going and what I would recommend. But packing kits are great. I stopped bringing my own shampoo and things like that. I've learned that my hair is not going to die for being washed with a random shampoo somewhere for 3 days. It's fine. I stopped doing that because I used to be very much I got to bring my own shampoo, and I don't do that anymore. Things like that, but it's really very specific, I guess is what I'm saying. You're important stuff on the line. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Don't put anything important into lots of checks.
Mm-hmm.
Do not put them in your check. Yeah, because that will get lost. Or when we get to Italy for her wedding, I don't know why I had this thing of I'm going to put all of our wedding outfits in this one luggage. I don't know why it was almost like a calling that I had. And I did. And then that one did not get lost. The other one, we got it back when we came back home 2 weeks later.
Wow.
So can you imagine losing the tux? Look for a tux for a 6-year-old, because you can maybe find one for a guy, but my dress, everything, thank God that arrived. And then the other luggage never made it. So yeah, definitely keep, and one thing I will say that I've learned too, keep a change of clothes in your carry-on in case you lose your luggage. Always do that. Learn that from experience too, because there is a possibility your luggage will never come.
Yes, sir.
Reference to Del Webb is being built near Bethania of Low Road. As you're leaving the city, after the Channel Line intersection, it's down the right. Is a big construction gate there now. No paved roads.
No what?
No paved roads yet.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You couldn't go in there and look around.
No, not yet.
That's the best part is when it's half built, kind of poke your head around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry though. It won't be long and you'll at least be able to get in. They'll what typically is done is a model home, and that's where they'll set up camp and have an office and have a realtor on that stays there and.
On a web session in Myrtle Beach. And it was really nice. Our problem that we didn't like it was everything was so close together. You don't have privacy between the house. If that doesn't bother you, it's really nice.
And this will probably be like that. They have a model. It's like anything in life. These companies, they have models and algorithms and formulas and they don't deviate.
The thing I liked about the one I toured in Myrtle Beach, the dishwasher was not sitting on the floor. It was on a cabinet put off the floor, so you didn't have to bend over to get dishes out of the dishwasher.
Yeah.
I've never seen that anywhere.
Yeah, I've seen it. It is nice.
I will say that is a perfect example of the kind of thing where you don't necessarily think about it. But when someone who's dealing with this sort of thing all the time, that's where I feel like talking to an expert in a lot of different areas, because that's not a make or break, but it makes every day just a little bit nicer. And I think that's one of the reasons why I asked her to put together a list of questions for like a builder, because also when you're building a home, you could say, hey, now I'm going to do that. Can we move it around? Does it have to be like this? Probably not, or are there little things inside of your own home that you could say, okay, this is the one sticky point with my home. It might be more cost effective and make more sense just to do some adjustments or remodels in your current home to make it more the way you want it to be, as opposed to selling or buying or having to make a major change. I saw a question over here.
I think you have a question.
I was just going to make the comment with the traveling and mountain pack is know if there's going to be washing machines that you can wash your own clothes in. You can buy small flat packages of Tide that you can bring with you. And know that you can wear your clothes several days. I used to overnight that I'd come home and realize I had not used half of what I had.
But you had choices.
I see people elbowing each other around the room going, that's you, honey. That's you.
It sounds overpacking. I mean, I'm surprised after 30 years of traveling that I've learned that I can wear several days, and I need to bring more shirts than pants because I tend to drop things on my shirts. But knowing that there's going to be a washing machine. I love the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went to London last April, and we were trying to rent a space split apartment with 2 couples. So 2 bedrooms, but to find a 2-bathroom is tough.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
So if anybody ever runs across that, just be aware.
Anything bigger than like the size of a bed in Europe is hard to find, period. Everything's very small. You've been waiting for a while.
How much do you specialize in like trips that, for instance, I like scuba diving, but she doesn't necessarily like the scuba diving part of it, but offers for both.
For both, yeah.
Or especially trips like most travelers just don't know much about scuba diving or especially.
That's a great question. That's my dad's situation. My dad's an avid scuba diver. Now that's all he wants to do. Like anywhere, I'm like, can we do a family trip? He's like, can I dive? Anyway, so yes, that's why I do most hosting, because people will come to me with those questions. And I used to, when I wasn't as experienced, always be like, okay, what trip can I find for them? Who can I recommend? And then I realized that there was sort of like almost like an opening in the marketplace to just when people call and say, this is what I like to do. This is what my wife likes to do. Can you make this happen? And I can say, yes, I can. You don't have to go with something that's already pre-made. Like we can make something that's for you. So yes, that's totally doable. I would need to, normally what I would do in that situation, it would be depending on where you wanted to go, how far away you want to go. Do you want to go somewhere exotic or not? If I'm not able to do it myself, as far as doing the custom, I get what's called a DMC, which is just basically somebody who's in destination, is a destination management company, and they will hire local operators that specialize in scuba diving, for example. And then I can take care of whatever your wife wants to do, and we can kind of put it together. So yeah, everything is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Really big question. We're hoping to stay in our house for the foreseeable future. We have a list of like projects we want to do. We have the kitchen, bathroom, maybe something in the backyard, a water feature. Are there certain things that you see, can you get a return on investment or play with other things that you're not paying constantly not get a return, but if you purchase it all that.
Yeah, good question. So I always recommend kitchen and baths. I think you're going to get now, of course, saying that, I think you should, because you can spend a fortune on both or either. So I do, so what I recommend typically is to look at the value of your house now, what you think the value of the house might be in 5 years, and just stay realistic within the value of the home. But yeah, kitchens and baths, I feel like you can never go wrong. Speaking of like the dishwasher being raised, I think it is a nice feature. I've seen that. Vanities today are higher than they used to be, so I mean, that's one thing that is right away when you walk in a home, you can tell if it's been renovated or not because of the height of the vanities, and a lot of it is your finishes. Just be careful with finishes because that's where it can get really over budget. And then as far as like other things, it really then, besides adding square footage, you're not going to get a whole lot more return. Floor coverings is an example. People don't like carpet so much today, so you put down other type floor covering, but are you going to really get the return on investment? It's a lot of things will make your house more sellable. But does it make it more valuable? Make the price go up. And besides adding square footage and kitchens and baths, it's tough. So I always say, if you're going to stay there, do what you want. Do what you want if you're going to stay, but don't come to me next year and ask me to sell it because you went all out, and that's fine. But if you're going to stay 4 or 5 years, I recommend you do what you want, but also don't go crazy.
We have a question here.
Yeah, I was a travel question. Could you advise us on medical insurance traveling abroad?
Yeah.
Necessary on top of what we already have with Medicare. I mean, we have full coverage. What would you say about medical?
That's a great question. I have somebody in the hospital now in Portugal, actually, broke their leg. So yes, we do. So most insurances I find don't have a lot of coverage outside of the US, like regular health insurance. So we always recommend it anyways. Now, the insurance that we sell is Allianz. We have an agency license to resell travel insurance. So I don't go around and like shop. I don't like offer every insurance company or anything. I don't even price shop. I work with Allianz. I've been working with them for over 10 years. They're a great company. So that's what I stick to. It's like, if you know it, you can sell it and you understand the product. So that's why I stick to it. Their product is sort of like combined with travel cancellation. So we don't have a way of separating just the medical from the cancellation. Now, what I tell clients is if they have cancellation insurance through their credit card company, for example, and they just want to get the medical, then we'll just insure a much lower amount. We don't have to insure the entire trip. We could say, okay, let's just do, I don't know, let's say the trip was $15,000. We can insure 2,000-3,000 because you get the same medical coverage regardless. We just have to have a policy. So we recommend it all across the board. You have no idea from my point of view, the crazy things I see. Like I've had people get hit by a car in Paris. I had somebody hurt their back so bad they had to be flown back in a medical jet. And that cost so much money. I've had people, this didn't happen to a client, but it did happen unfortunately to my son has a schoolmate. Her father was doing a marathon in Switzerland and passed away, 37 years old. Now you got to get the body back to the US. All of those things are covered by travel insurance. So we always highly, highly recommend it. It can be steep, especially if you're older, because it does go by your age. The older you are, the more likely something can go wrong. That's just the way it is. But I've had people hospitalized with pneumonia. I've seen it all. I'm always like, if you can already spend 15K on this, just spend the extra 500, 700, whatever it is, and insure it. Because it's not just, because people always tell me, well, I'm going to go. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what you think. I've had people like literally fall and hit their head at the garage 2 days before they were supposed to leave. Or 2 days ago, I don't know if any of you saw in the news that WestJet went on strike and they canceled like 90 flights. And I had people stranded, and it was either they made it or they lost the money because they didn't buy the insurance, and I couldn't do anything. Everything was under penalty. And the airline, the hotel is certainly not going to care that the airline went on strike. They don't care. You're not getting your money back. The car rental, the tours, everything we had lined up was all under penalty. And then the client ended up flying from like Raleigh to Minneapolis to Seattle, and then drove 10 hours to Banff, Canada, so that she wouldn't lose this trip. Where had she had insurance, we could have canceled it. She could have gotten her money back. We could have just rebooked it for a later time. But she didn't have a choice. So yeah, definitely always recommend it. When it says, are you sure you don't want to insure your trip? Just click on yes. Because everything, Murphy's Law, right? And so, sorry. Allianz is who I sell. Allianz Travel Insurance. It's the one that's used by Delta. They're actually they're a European company, and they do car insurance and all kinds of insurance in Europe.
They do life insurance and annuities and a lot of other things, which is one thing I would say, and I will kind of echo that Allianz is a great company. One thing that we found, and this is true with all kinds of different insurance, right? And it ranges from health insurance, travel insurance, annuities, life insurance, med-sup policies, you name it. And this is particularly true of like long-term care policies. It's not just, does the policy say it covers it, but how easy is this as a company to work with?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just, am I going to have to fight for 6 months to get this back, or is it this got canceled and you get it back right away? And so I will say, if sometimes if you try and save $5 to get a slightly cheaper travel insurance policy, it's not always the best case.
I'm glad you said that, because I have people that will say, well, I saw this thing online and it's cheaper. And I'm like, that's fine, but I don't know how their process is. I don't know how reliable they are. I don't know if they're going to pay you. With Allianz, I know people that work there. Like, I have a rep I can call. I have an email. I can send an email and say, hey, what's going on with this claim? It's taking too long to process. I know one of the things I do for my clients, if they buy the Allianz insurance that we sell, we do get a commission on it, full disclosure. But one of the things we do is we filed the claim for you. We know the process. We know what documents to send. We can tell you what to tell your doctor to put on the form so that it doesn't bounce back. Like, there's all these little things that we can help you do. And it's cheaper is not always best, I guess, for sure.
Question?
Just a testimony for Allianz. I was just in Europe about 3 months ago. We had an accident. And once we got back with our receipts, they approved everything within 24 hours. It was incredible.
They're a great company.
You do have to have the receipts.
Yes, you have to have all the paperwork.
But all of that, you got the paperwork.
Lost luggage. I had a family once have to cancel their trip to Scotland because they were leaving out of Raleigh. Flight got canceled due to weather. So they're like, just come back tomorrow. I'm like, okay, call the hotel. They're going to be there tomorrow. No worries. The next day, they get on the plane. The plane starts circling around. There were some mechanical issues, had to land again. And so by this time, they've already lost like 2 days and a half from their trip. But their trip was only like, 10 days. It wasn't that long. And then they were like, you know what? Can we just, because it had been more than 24 hours from the original arrival time, they had Allianz. They had bought the policy. I was like, hey, if you don't want to miss out, we can just cancel. We can pull the plug on this whole thing and we can just reschedule it. And that's what we did. And they just went 3 months later. Everything went fine. Had they not had the insurance, they were just at whatever, at the expense of whatever the airline wanted to do. Because that's literally what the situation. If you book an expensive Viking cruise and you can't get there because the flights get canceled 2 days in a row and you don't have insurance, nobody's coming to save you. You lost whatever you paid. And not everybody realizes that. They assume that flights are going to operate the way they're scheduled and everything is going to go perfectly. And it doesn't always go that way.
Question here.
Would Allianz cover the medevac from Europe to the United States?
They do have an emergency. It depends on the plan, but the plan that we normally sell, which is the classic kind of like their middle of the road plan, they do have emergency transportation is what they call it. Yeah. And now it depends. It would have to be a situation where the care that you need needs to happen in the U.S. for them to do it. Because I have people be hospitalized in Europe for weeks and they've gotten the care they need and that's more affordable. I see some of these receipts from the hospital in Europe and I'm like, so cheap. But anyways, so yeah, it just depends on what you need, but it is included emergency transportation, emergency medical care, emergency dental coverage. If you were to pass away, they had to bring your body back. That's under the emergency transportation coverage. So there's all of that in there.
Question here.
My cousin's neighbor, he and his wife were on a cruise ship and he dropped dead.
Yeah.
Cost her $27,000 to get his body off the cruise ship.
Wow.
She got reimbursed, but she had to pay up front before they would take him off the cruise ship.
That is true. Even insurance works that way, though. Allianz will, you pay for it on that, unfortunately. Yeah.
Not travel.
I'm glad. That's exactly what I was going for.
I will say this when it comes to traveling, though. You always hear the horror stories or the most amazing thing imaginable.
Yeah.
Not that kind of it's like you very rarely hear, we went and it was fine. Fine. Food is all right. Had an okay time. It was like, it's either incredible or it's really, really bad. And I think we're more prone to tell the bad story than the good.
Also, I see this with some clients. If you're a moody and not necessarily happy person here, you're not going to be any happier.
So what you're saying is no matter where you go, you're still you.
Because some clients, I can just tell when I speak that you can just tell they're very just kind of have a negative sort of outlook on life. And that's okay. I can be that way sometimes too. And then when they're traveling, they're just complaining about this nothing has gone wrong, but they would inevitably be like, well, the sun didn't hit me in the right. Or I had this lady once, I'll never forget to this day, and call me and talk about how the bathroom and the pillows, all these just insignificant things that if you really want to find something wrong with something, you can stay in the nicest place. I've had people walk off. What was it? It was a $90,000 cruise. I had a lady walk off the first day because she didn't think it was good enough. So yeah, that's not weird.
One of my favorite sayings is, if you want it like her, stay
home.
Oh, that's a great sound.
Have an open mind.
Can I get on a cancellation list for people that cancel those kind of 90,000 trips? I'll take their place.
I wish I'd be taking their place in life, but actually I've tried. This lady's sister, she canceled a very expensive trip, and then she had credits with these hotels. And my husband's like, is there any way we can get our name on that? I'm like, we're not doing that. So let me email them. It didn't work. They're like, no, we can't. I didn't say for myself. I just said, is it possible to change the name? And they know because they know these people, they're not going to use it. So it's like, well, I'll give you this credit, and they never use it.
Well, if you all want to stick around and ask questions, you can, but I hope this has been beneficial. I appreciate everyone coming this afternoon. I do want to leave you with one cautionary story real quick, because this happened 2 weeks ago. I had a gentleman who came into the office. He wasn't a client, and we were talking through things, and he had decided to purchase a second home. They bought a mountain house up in Virginia, and he just went ahead and emptied out his Roth account and then took the difference from his IRA because he didn't want to pay for a mortgage, because he felt like interest rates are higher now, didn't want to pay for a mortgage. Well, we ran the reports, and he pushed himself well into the 32% tax bracket. We could have kept it in the 22 if he had taken out a loan, and yes, there'd be some interest on the loan, but he would have saved a ton in taxes, more than a loan. But the part that he didn't think about, and that I had the not very pleasant experience of having to explain to him, was that his Medicare premiums were about to shoot up next year from something that he did last year. And so I will just say this, because I've had this happen, usually not with our clients, but I have had it happen before, where people will come in and they'll make a large financial decision, whether it's an expensive vacation or purchasing a second home or doing these types of things. And they tell the advisor afterwards, and they say, hey, I need you to cut a check in a week. Can you raise the cash? I know it's in there. We can do that. But I would say call first, because there's usually different strategies you can employ and better ways to do it to mitigate on taxes and just put yourself in the best position possible. So I do think it's good to work in a team. I think it's really important to have a number of resources. And so that's why we wanted to do this today and just give you more resources available, people you can ask. And so thank you so much for being here. And somebody actually came up to me earlier and said, thank you for putting this on. You did such a great job. You picked a great venue. And I was like, yep. And these three lovely ladies were standing right behind me. And I went, yes, I did a wonderful job. That was all up. So if you see Kristen and Emily and Taylor, tell them thank you, because trust me, I was looking at the stock market. I wasn't looking here. But I appreciate y'all doing this. You guys have a wonderful day.